All right, so next up here, next 30 minutes, I'll bring you some stories from El Salvador, some stories from the world. Come take a seat. I'll talk about global and community-led Bitcoin education with my first Bitcoin. I'll start with the early beginning of what we did back in 2021. That's the time when Bitcoin became a legal tender in El Salvador, but also the time that my first Bitcoin started with education on the ground. So I brought two pictures with me, and they illustrate very well why there was a demand for education on the ground. So on the left, you see an old man. He's reading a newspaper on September 7th that this was the day that Bitcoin became his new currency. Little did he know about Bitcoin at all. He had no idea what it was, how it worked, and how to implement it in his life. And I remember I was talking to him, I asked him, what do you think about Bitcoin? And his answer was, I don't have an opinion because I simply don't know anything about it. At the same day, later in the afternoon, there was a big protest against Bitcoin. The same city, the same day. People that simply had no idea what Bitcoin was. They thought the B stands for Bukele, the president of El Salvador. They fight against anything that the government says, including Bitcoin. So it became very clear that on this day in El Salvador, when there was a new currency, there was a big demand for education, educational resources, for a place for people to learn about Bitcoin and what it really is, instead of like a Bukele coin or whatever. So in 2021, around this time, September, August, we started to educate people on the ground. So we took people from the streets, from the Uber, from wherever we could find them, the Chivo ATM, the lines, the Bitcoin ATMs in the country, and we brought them into an Airbnb. No curriculum, no plan, no organization, but just a demand in the country to bring Bitcoin to the locals. So what we did, we sent them some sats, we made a very basic intro course, and we just started to talk to people and do community building. And this was the beginning of my first Bitcoin, which eventually grew out into like a global movement, which I'll tell you more about in a second. So my first Bitcoin was born from demand in El Salvador, but who are we and what do we really do? So I brought the vision statement of our website to this slide. I'm gonna look at it from different angles. The vision statement is, my first Bitcoin is around a core concept that independent, impartial, community-led Bitcoin education will change the world. And what that really means, I'll highlight in a second with independence, our impartiality, our focus on community-led education, and also the global aspect of our efforts, or the effort of our movement, I should say. So how do we achieve this vision? Well, the answer is very simple. Test. Oh. The answer is very simple. We open source everything we do. If we want to scale Bitcoin education to 8 billion people, we are not the only ones who should be in charge. It's all of us, all together. So the only way to achieve our mission is by enabling other educators to do what we've been doing. That includes a variety of educational resources. One of them is the famous Bitcoin diploma. You may have seen it here on the table or at our booth. But also the teacher lesson plan guide, blueprint for meetups, the Bitcoin intro course, introductory course of 1 hour, unconferences, how to run events for Bitcoin educators, and also a new curriculum which we pre-launched 2 days ago, which is the Bitcoin for organizations, the Bitcoin diploma for organizations, and many more to come. So everything that we create, we implement in El Salvador, and we encourage other people to use it in their local context in whatever country that is. So this is an example of the intro course. It's a 1 hour course of 20-something slides. It brings you from the very basic questions about what is money and what the functions of money are into how the dollar and fiat is broken, the history of cypherpunks, and eventually what Bitcoin is and how it works with a wallet and private keys and stuff. Again, a very simple introductory course with the goal to gauge interest in your community from people that may want to learn more after this. So This 1 hour, you pull them into your project to eventually teach them the Bitcoin. But before I talk about the Bitcoin diploma, I want to share one more resource that we open sourced for the community, which is our unconference. So we've hosted 5 educator unconference all around the world now, and we've also open sourced how we organize this. So an unconference is a event which is intentionally disorganized. It's not chaos, but we want it to be an open space where everyone can contribute. We co-create the agenda, so everyone shows up in the morning. Everyone has a chance to pitch their project in 30 minutes, the thing they want to discuss, and then we create a schedule with everyone who's present in that day and brings things to the table. So we did this first in El Salvador 2 years ago. We organized some in Madeira, in Nashville. We'll have one in Vancouver in August and one in November in El Salvador again. And as we did this, we were like, we want everything that we do to be possible for others to duplicate, which includes, like, how do you run such an event? How, if you want to organize your own conference, we can share that with you. So we created this blueprint, basically, that goes from like the first preparations, the technical side, the budget, the finances, about the venue, about the speakers, about the branding, the marketing, etc. So you can download it from our GitHub and start using this. On top of that, we made a planning document that brings you from 0 to the event day. So if you start today with organizing such a conference, you can pull it off in 3 months with all the items that need to be done, which week, which day, and again, it's the same list. So everything starting with the role clarity, finances, budgeting, marketing, getting your ticket sale website up and running, all those things included in like one blueprint that you can follow. And on top of that, some templates for your ticket sales, your budgets, and everything else that involves the organization of such an event. So if you're interested into bringing this to your local community, go to our GitHub and download the spreadsheets, and we'd love to help you organize your own educators and conference in your local community. Okay, now back to education itself, because there's a lot more to talk about that. So as I mentioned, we started in El Salvador, and by now we taught tens of thousands of students in person, from the Bitcoin diploma, from the intro course, from the curricula that we developed. We helped the Ministry of Education to develop its course. We brought this to a lot of schools, and we trained 700 teachers from the public school system, and basically helped them to get at a point where they should be able to do this on their own, which they're kind of doing now, I suppose. And we helped to start to build a curricula as well for younger audiences, and I hope that we can share more about this later. But this is only the efforts that we do on the ground in El Salvador. A big part of what's happening right now with My First Bitcoin is our international growth. Grassroots, inbound, projects from all over the world that start to take these resources like the Bitcoin diploma, the intro course, unconference blueprints, and everything else that we create, and bring it to their local community. So we are in touch with 70 projects from 35 countries right now that try to do what we've been doing in El Salvador, and we share best practices with each other, and we build a network, a social layer for all these educators. At the same time, our resources are translated into many, many languages. And as I mentioned, we have educator and conferences all over the world, either by us organizing it or we help other people to organize it. And I'll talk a bit more about this global aspect of My First Bitcoin shortly. So what's the journey for students? They come to our class and they start at 0. How do we bring them to becoming like a real Bitcoiner? How do we go from A to B or A to Bitcoin? So it starts with the Bitcoin diploma, chapter number 1. Why do we need money? And again, this is all open source, so if you're interested, you can download this as well on our website, GitHub, and teach it yourself. So why do we need money? What is money? History of money? What is fiat money? All the way up to how to use Bitcoin, Lightning in your daily life, ending with chapter 10, why Bitcoin? So this is the curriculum that takes around 10 lessons of an hour, 1.5 hour, taking your student from zero, no information about Bitcoin, to basically understanding all the principles that they need to know in order to navigate in the future of Bitcoin, of the modern era. After all students go through the diploma, 10 weeks, we have graduations. And some of them we do in public in El Salvador. So many Bitcoiners from all over the world have attended these schools. They went to a local school in El Salvador, and you verify the knowledge of the students either by answering some questions, asking them if they know who is Satoshi Nakamoto, what is Bitcoin mining, etc. They have to prove that they can send some Bitcoin to you via the Lightning Network. They have to prove that they can send, that they can receive Bitcoin as well, and they have to make a backup of their wallet. And when they check all these boxes, they're going on to the next step, which is the graduation itself. So we bring everyone together, and this is the moment where all the students can be proud of what they're doing. And every time when I attend these events, these graduations, you feel the hope, you feel how proud they are for being one of the first students worldwide to learn about Bitcoin on their age. We're still early. So all of them come together and we hand out the certificates, and they completed their first step in Bitcoin. Okay, so that's the journey of the students. I want to go back to what we do with My First Bitcoin and how we implement our vision statement into our organization, into our movement. And I'll highlight 4 important things. So the first thing is that we want to be independent and impartial, community-led, and we want to be there for the entire world. The independence is maybe one of the core pillars of what we do. Regardless of what people want, we stay true to our nature, that we want to be neutral. Everything we create is independent, which means that if you come to us, you give us a bunch of money, and you tell, listen, I want you to promote my product, we say no. This should be the most neutral blueprint for any educator all over the world to start teaching about Bitcoin. The same applies to our impartiality. So all the funding we receive comes without any strings attached. So around 57% of our income is coming from grants like the Human Rights Foundation, OpenSats, Start Small, and other grant facilities. And 43% comes from the community with grassroots funding on Geyser or direct donations or otherwise. And this enables us to remain neutral, independent, and also transparent. Oh, and we take zero money from governments. Even if they try, you cannot buy our soul. At the moment we have I think the second biggest or maybe biggest Geyser campaign, where Bitcoiners can donate to our movement, to our project. Great way for any educator to get started and donate some sats either to us or to many of the other educational projects all around the world. And then this third part, which I'm really passionate about, which is the global aspect of My First Bitcoin. So what started only 3.5 years ago in El Salvador, without a curriculum, without a team, without funding, but only an idea, grow into something very substantial in more than 40 countries. So how we did that, I already mentioned it, simply by open sourcing what we do and inspiring others to join us. So we have something that's called a node network, which is a collective of educators from all over the world that come together under the same banner of independent education, impartiality, community-based, Bitcoin only, and quality. So as long as you abide by these 6 pillars, you can join the movement, join the network, and be in touch with all these other projects all over the world. We have some kind of a governance system to remain pure as a network, which is maintained by a group of nodes called full nodes. So they look at all the applications, they do mentorship of new projects that wants to get started with Bitcoin education, and they have a couple of other responsibilities within the network. So currently we have 9 full nodes, and 63 light nodes from 39 countries. So you can see them here on the map. Some countries have multiple nodes, like in South Africa we have 3. In Kenya there are 4 nodes. Of course, we have one in Honduras with AmityAge. We have 2 in El Salvador, and a handful in Europe as well. And I think what's worth mentioning here is that all these projects came to us. Like, we're not reaching out to anyone to join this network. Everything is inbound, and this is simply coming from a demand from grassroots projects all over the world that want to educate. So in just over 2 years, we grew from 1 project into a network of 72, and it's growing every single day. So all these projects do the same as what we're doing in El Salvador. They're teaching the Bitcoin diploma, and we support each other, we share best practices, we share resources, and we're also reminding each other every time that this is a marathon and not a sprint, because it's a lot of work to pull off these graduations. So just to give you an idea, we have The Core, a project from Kenya, doing online classes. Of course, we have AmityAge, number 2 in the leadership in the dashboards from Honduras, Bitcoin Indonesia, Bitcoin Victoria Falls from Zambia, Cuba Bitcoin, Bitcoin School Argentina, and many others. You can find all this on our website to see how the Bitcoin diploma and all the resources are spreading across the world. If you don't see your country on this map yet, as a node or as a project at teaching, that means that you can be the first one. So please reach out to me after this keynote or later today if you want to get started with running cohorts by bringing Bitcoin education into your community and to get your node on the map and to join this network and also strengthen everyone else that's doing this so we can share resources and learn from each other. You can also find a GitHub directory on our GitHub page with all these projects and what they're doing and background information, contact information, etc., in case you're interested. So just a list of logos of projects that are part of this. I already mentioned a couple of them. We have Operation Bitcoin, one of the full nodes. We have Bitcoin Haiti, Bismarck Bitcoin in the US, Bitcoin Ubuntu South Africa. And basically they do exactly the same thing but in a different place, which creates a lot of beautiful synergy between all these nodes. So I listed a couple of examples, and this is always so inspiring to see how these projects start to connect to each other without us being the single point of failure, because that's our goal. So for example, The Core, an online project from Kenya, has had graduates from Haiti, from India and Nigeria, and these students started their own educational project in their own country. Simply because everything that they were taught from is open source, so they can take it and they can join the same movement as that they once were a student of. Another node is Bitcoin Policy UK, and Huxley, his name, he started to do teacher onboarding training. So for every educator who wants to get started and a bit more guidance, you could reach out to him and he would help you to get started with your first cohort. Bitcoin School Argentina started to record podcasts with all the educators from the node network to help with visibility. And Bitcoin Ubuntu, for example, a node in South Africa, started to teach with another project, Bitcoin Loction, in the same country, also with online classes. So as you can see, by teaching from an open source standard, which is the Bitcoin diploma in this case, there is so much more synergy to be created between all of us. And I think that's the next big step for Bitcoin in general and for education, is to find your people, connect with them, learn from them, and also give away to what they may need and you already have. Some more examples is that Cuba Bitcoin and Bitcoin Dominicana from the Dominican Republic, they're sharing online cohorts. They're almost neighbors, they're teaming up, and they're helping each other. We had translations coming out of multiple teams from Canada and Haiti, for example, and Burundi to work on the French translation. And we had a lot of guest teachers between nodes. So imagine you're running your first cohort and you're looking to get some support. You know that there are many educators already who went through the same process with the same chapters before. So this results in graduations worldwide, and I collected a couple of photos to make visible what's happening all over the world. Of course, with AmityAge in Honduras, They ran many cohorts already with the Bitcoin diploma over the past 2 years. Bitcoin Victoria Falls in Zambia, they've been running 6 or 7 cohorts in Livingstone, and they also start to expand now all over the country. They also have many graduates from their programs that started to teach and start a new program on their own. We have projects in India, in Goa, Labs Together Strong, teaching the same Bitcoin diploma, the same certificates. And of course, we do it as well. We are just one of the many nodes based out of El Salvador. And our end goal is that we are just one of 1,000 nodes. We're all equal, we're teaching the same, we're sharing, and hopefully we can inspire others to do what we've already been doing. So our focus is in El Salvador and providing everything that educators need all over the world. For example, in Canada or in Mexico, BTC Isla from Isabella is on her second cohort right now. Guatemala has taught a lot of cohorts as well in the past. Lago Bitcoin. And Cuba ran many cohorts last year. And for privacy, they cannot show everyone's faces for, well, clear reasons. And one more example from South Africa, Bitcoin Ekazi. So you may start to see a trend already that 2 years ago, many people wanted to start their own circular economy. And nowadays, everyone starts with education and it ends becoming a circular economy. So I see it's shifting, that the foundational layer for any bit of adoption, any bit of like a circular economy is education, and it has proven to be this open standard for education, the Bitcoin diploma. So once a month, at the last Thursday of every month, we unite in something that we call a General Assembly, where all these educators, all these 70 projects are invited, show up, and they give a little update about what they've been up to. They inspire each other to keep going, they share best practices, and we're working on breakout rooms right now where we can talk about specific topics, whether it's fundraising for your project, or how to run your first cohort, or whatever problems they may come up. We had a request last week from the project in Haiti, and there are no Bitcoin companies in Haiti, so how can they do conversion back to Creole? It's a whole different way of building your circular economy, and there may be many more in this network facing the same problems. So we try to connect them in this GA, in a General Assembly, to learn from each other and to share what we already have been through in El Salvador, including also sharing all the new resources that we develop every month. One more thing that I would like to highlight is the beauty of this community-led aspect of education. So some people ask us from El Salvador, like, why don't you go to this country or that country to teach? Because there is so much to do all over the world. But I think the beauty of this network is the local implementation, the local context, and the local leaders. Like, you need to find the people that are already trusted in their community. You need to find the people that know how something works locally, that know how to speak to this specific target audience. So for example, Operation Bitcoin is a node, a project that's teaching veterans. A whole different way of teaching veterans than maybe teaching the youth, which Bitcoin Ballers Academy is doing in the UK with like a soccer club, which is a whole different way of teaching than, for example, Bitcoin Data in Kenya or the Core, which is running online cohorts. So just to emphasize that if we would go to the world and teach, we would do it our way. But if you go to your local community, you do it your way, and that's the way that resonates with people in their local school, in their town, in their village, whatever. So I think it's important to highlight this community-led implementation of Bitcoin education. It's very tailored to the needs of this person. You need to speak their language, not only like the real language, but also like their habits and their local culture. So if you want to bring Bitcoin education to your church, club, school, community, town, whatever, join us, join the movement. Don't ask for permission, everything is on our website, everything is available on GitHub. Start to translate it, join us on our community hub, on our online schools, or talk to me. I'm more than happy to get you started with all the resources. And yeah, I think we're stronger together, and that's the big takeaway for this. Thank you very much. Do we have time for some questions? Any questions, perhaps?
So thank you for what you're doing. How do you get people or kids to enroll in your programs? To enroll in your programs?
So how can we get children or like people in general to enroll to start the Bitcoin diploma or to? Yeah, good question. So like I mentioned, we've been teaching a lot in the public school system in El Salvador, so that was making it much easier for us. That's not the case anymore, which brings struggles to find your students. So one way we're doing is to like teach in restaurants or cafes where people come regularly, and the owner of this place is supporting Bitcoin and education in general. So you invite them to come to like a cohort every 2 weeks or like a class. One way of students. But this is again very different for every different project in the world. So talking to the core from Kenya, and what he found very effective is once you have one cohort of, let's say, 20 graduates, ask those graduates to be your recruitment team. Like, ask them to find their friends, their family, their parents, their uncles, whatever. Yeah, it's...
Let's switch the mic.
Test, yeah. So there are different ways for different countries. So in Africa, everyone is always sharing their programs on WhatsApp. In Latin America, everyone's using Facebook still. So there is not one way to do this, and that's, I think, it comes back to the community-led part of this movement. Is there is no one answer that's true, but everyone is figuring out their own way, and we share it with each other. More questions? All right. Thanks, everyone.